Welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. It is Q&A Tuesday. So all of the questions today are geared towards people who are interested in medical coding or who are new medical coders. Okay, this is that edition. Okay, I have lots of good questions, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, number one, should I get a degree or should I go with a certification? I always suggest people that are not sure what they want to do, whether they want to go the degree route or they want to go the certification route, get the certification first. If you're not even sure if you want to be a medical coder, why are you going to spend thousands of dollars going to college and getting a degree for something that you're not really sure if you want to stick with? There are many benefits to going and getting your degree, okay? You are offered externships. You're able to apply for other positions other than just being a medical coder. People who have degrees are often supervisors or they run whole departments. So there's a myriad of things that you can apply for if you go the degree route, okay? But again, if you are not really sure, I always suggest going the amount of money that you're going to spend the least amount trying to get into medical coding, okay? Which would be the certification. There are very good online programs, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit as I go down the list. But that would be my suggestion. Always ask lots of questions because sometimes people will start to get excited about the field because they hear something. Or maybe, like a recruiter is trying to tell them all the pretty stuff about being a medical coder. If you've taken the time to watch any of my videos, you'll know that I am very honest and very candid when it comes to this field. That it's not all pretty all the time. There is a lot of hard work that goes into it, but the reward is so much more than the little bit of discomfort, at least in my opinion, that you experience sometimes as a medical coder. So that's my thought on that one. Like I said, look for, I've talked about this before, but always look for whatever you are qualified for. Like if you are qualified for scholarships, get those. If you are qualified for any sort of money to pay for school, use it. Because the thing is, the more educated you are, or the more that you have somebody to explain these things to you, the better off you're going to be. You can learn this on your own. You can learn it from a book, but it does take time. And you have to have somebody to ask questions too. So if you have any questions, I'm doing my little plug for Q&A Tuesday. If you have any questions, submit them here. You can email me. I will always include my email address down in the description box below. Or you can comment on any of the videos and I will just tack it onto a list. Okay? So that's the answer to that one. Number 2, where can I go to get more information about the medical coding field? Like the job outlook, can you do this part-time? What is the salary? What are the benefits? Guys, every employer is different. I've known many different employers and each have different benefit packages. So if you send a question like that, I'm going to direct you back to the Department of Labor website, which is dol.gov, because there's all of that information that's in for like medical coders in your area. They have a listing for all of that information. And as far as like wanting to know what the benefits are of any employer, you're gonna have to talk to that employer because I don't know. But yes, I always talk about not wanting to talk about money because I refuse to talk about money. I will talk about everything else when it comes to medical coding, but I will not talk about money. There is one time that I did talk about money in one of my videos, but only because I liked the way that the viewer worded the question, and I thought it was a fair question, so I did answer it, but that's the only time I'm going to talk about money. If you want to know what a medical coder makes, you're going to have to go to dol.gov. Okay? Next question. Are background checks normal practice? Yes, they are. Because consider this. You are working with people's private information. You're working with a lot of very sensitive information, whether it is about a person's health or, their financial information. We've got access to all of that. So with that in mind, yes, you are going to experience background checks. You're going to experience, sometimes you may have to take a drug screen. I've done a couple of urine tests before when I've applied for jobs, and it's really no big deal. But on your background checks, sometimes they will ask you if you have any criminal history or anything like that. If you've already been adjudicated, but make sure that you go ahead and write it down, let your employer know, because when they run a background check, they're going to find out anyway, but you can always explain, because a lot of times they always say, it doesn't necessarily mean you're out, okay, you're out of the running. It just means that you need to be honest about what happened in your past. If you, the things that they're kind of looking for, obviously, would be like if you have a issue with identity theft or things like that, because again, we're working with sensitive information, that's going to be an issue. So always be honest about your background, your past history, because it will come out. These hospitals and these companies that do these hirings, they have to be very careful about who they let have access to this information. But if you've already completed your time and you've done what you're supposed to do, and just make sure that you are honest and let it be known when you completed your time, or when you completed, whatever it is you had to do with anything that you had going on in the past. Okay, so again, always be honest. When it comes to this, honesty is the best policy, because you want to make sure that you are very upfront and truthful. Okay. So that's my advice on that one. Number 4 is resume advice for nurses. Okay. So if you are a nurse and you're making the transition over to being a medical coder, wonderful. A lot of times employers will get very excited when they see a nurse, because nurses are generally offered positions like for clinical documentation improvement, because a lot of times they've had experience speaking with providers, and a lot of times employers will see that as a valuable resource. I speak with my providers even though I've never been a nurse, but it's taken me time to learn how to do that, okay? And with nurses, a lot of times nurses have an instant rapport with doctors, because they're like, oh, I'm a nurse. Oh, okay, well, we understand each other, because nurses have had extensive training, whereas medical coders, it is going to depend on how the caliber of that particular coder is. The more you study and the more you spend time trying to learn things and teach yourself or go to different classes, the higher caliber you are going to be. You always want to shoot for being a high caliber coder, because that is what the facilities and your doctors and their patients, this is what they all deserve, is somebody that cares about what they're doing. Okay. But if you, going back to that, if you are a nurse, if you have done code selections, if you have done charting, you need to put this in your resume. Okay. All these little things, even though they may seem like, oh yeah, that's common sense that I did that, the employer doesn't know that. And at least this way you can show you've had experience with charting. You know what the codes are. You know how to apply codes. And so they say, oh, well, if she knows how to do that, well, she's a medical coder now. We've got a very good resource here. So even though you may not have experience as a medical coder, just having the background already of knowing how a chart is supposed to look and doing code selections is going to make you look good and more attractive to a potential employer. Okay. What else do I have noted here? Oh, yes. Talk up being a team player if you are a team player, obviously, because being a team player is very important. And the fact that you've had experience with doctors, again, put that on your resume. If you have had any kind of experience with medical software like Epic, Meditech, Cerner, 3M, you need to put it on your resume, because at least this is another thing that is like another feather in your cap. Like, oh yes, She already knows how to use the systems. Okay, so this is another good point for this person. And even though you may be new to the field, again, it's going to make you look more attractive because you've had previous experience. So while you may not have previous experience as a medical coder, you do have previous experience being a nurse and applying codes. So again, it's going to make you look more attractive. So, okay. And don't worry if you don't have any medical experience. I'm going to bring up some resume tips for us people that have never been in the medical field prior to this. So, because I came from a background of zero medical experience before when I started. So, trust me, if you're brand new to the field of medical to begin with, it is quite daunting in the beginning, but don't worry. We will talk about resume tips for you in just a minute. All right. Number 5. Advice for new people who are just credentialed. Okay, when you start looking at job listings and they start saying 3 to 5 years experience on every single job listing for medical coders, do not get discouraged, okay? You've already made it through medical coding school and you've gotten your credential, which is you've already crossed 2 very, very big paths, okay? Just to get where you are to the point of I can apply for jobs now, okay? This is not the time to give up, okay? Just because they say, oh, yes, we want 3 to 5 years, it's okay. Go ahead and apply anyway. And I will be getting to the resume tips here in a minute. But just keep applying. Do not take no for an answer when it comes to, oh, yes, well, they want 3 to 5 years. Submit it anyway. What's the worst that's going to happen? Either they don't call you or they tell you that we can't hire you because you don't have experience. That's fine. But you keep applying because sometimes, and this has happened to some people that I've known, they saw 3 to 5 years experience. Some saw 2 years of experience needed. They went ahead and applied anyway. The company was so desperate for people that they went ahead and allowed for people who had no experience to apply for the job, and then they hired them. So sometimes, even though they say that you have to have experience and things like that, I hate when my phone rings and I'm trying to film. When you're applying and they say you need to have experience and you don't have experience and you're like, well, I'm just going to go ahead and apply anyway. Sometimes you do get lucky and they call you back and say, hey, we need somebody to come in and you passed your pre-employment exam. Always, 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 always try to stay as positive as you possibly can. I know it's hard. Trust me, because I've been there. I know. I got a lot of rejection before I finally got my first job. And that was because I went through a temporary agency. And again, I'm going to go into a little bit more of those as I go on in the episode. But again, do not let the ad saying they have to have all this experience. Go ahead and apply anyway. Okay? Just keep applying. And do not take no for an answer when it says, oh, well, we want 3 to 5. That's okay. Go ahead and submit your resume anyway. Okay, because you're going to make yourself look as positive as possible in this resume. And again, I'm going to talk about resume tips coming up. All right, so next question. Number 6, other jobs for coders. Okay, so if you can't get in as a medical coder just yet, all right, here's some other things you can do. You can work for a medical billing company because those people do not have to be certified medical coders, okay? A lot of times you don't even have to have any experience or anything to work for a medical billing company. What happens a lot of times is people who work for medical billing companies are processing paperwork that comes in, okay? They're processing these claims for the insurance company. You can start your career there, okay? This will give you exposure to codes. Now, you may not be applying codes, of course, because you work in the medical billing company, but you will come in contact with this information and you will start to learn how the process starts in this side of the house. So when you do go apply for a job, you can say, well, I was a medical biller, for this amount of time or whatever, and that will give you experience, okay? It'll give you some sort of start, okay, into getting your foot in the door somewhere. Because if you put on your resume, hey, I've been a medical biller, oh, well, this person knows the insurance company, so we're going to want to hire this person because this person is going to know at least the ins and outs of this particular insurance company or that particular insurance company. So this is very important, and it's important to share your knowledge when you do get it, okay? So that's that one. You can also work for an insurance company. Insurance companies are often looking for medical coders. So be sure to look into the big medical insurance companies, and I won't talk about them. but just, you all know who a good big medical insurance company is. So just be sure to look and see if they have any job listings, okay? What else do we have here? A medical records department. You can also apply in the medical records department because it's all about meeting people at that point. Now, don't get stuck, because sometimes people will start their career or try to start their career as a medical coder in the medical records department, and then they get stuck and they don't end up leaving to be a medical coder. So whatever you do, if your goal is, not that there's anything wrong with being in the medical records department, there is not. Some people really do enjoy it. But if your goal is to become a medical coder, be proactive in the fact that you are wanting to be a medical coder. So anytime your facility, or whether you work at a hospital or a doctor's office, wherever you're working, if you start off in the medical records department, let it be known that you want to be a medical coder. Okay, this is when you can start meeting people, and this is when you can start shaking hands and saying, hey, I'm a medical coder, and I have my certification. I'm just, I'm here to learn as much as I can, and I would eventually like to be a medical coder. Whenever a job listing opens up, most of the time, the people that are going to get considered first are the people that work there, okay? So again, first impressions are everything. If they see that you are eager, if you are a model employee, they're going to want to look at you when it does come time to hire a medical coder. And, oh, don't you know that so-and-so is a certified medical coder? Let's go ahead and give her a try or him a try, and we'll see what happens. So again, you can start there. That's another place. Medical front office. This is another really good way to meet people, because you're going to be able to meet the people from, if you're working in the medical front office, you're going to be able to meet the people who are doing the coding, or the people who are doing the billing, or the supervisor who's doing the hiring, okay? It's going to put you in a good position, okay, to meet these people. And this is where shaking hands and just being able to showcase your good qualities as a good employee and the fact that you want to be a medical coder. So again, just something to consider. If you're trying to get a job as a medical coder and you can't find one, try these other routes and see if this will help you get your foot in the door somewhere. Because I started at a temporary agency, which is the next tick on my list, is to apply at a temporary agency. All of the assignments that they send you on, and it may be an assignment here or there, maybe 1 day or 2 days. If they're doing that, fine, because it's going to show as experience on your resume. That's what you want. You want to have that experience. A lot of times, sometimes people will volunteer in the medical records department to get some sort of experience on their resume. And it also will help with getting a letter of recommendation as well. And somebody in the industry who can vouch for you would be a really good, reference to have. That, somebody that's a medical coder already, and they've known that you've been trying and you volunteer for their department or whatever. It's going to go on your resume. It's going to make you look good, okay? Because it's showing that you have some background already. So another thing to consider, okay? Let's see, what am I at? Number 7, go to the association meetings. I say this all the time. If you are a member of the association, whether you are American Health Information Management Association or the American Academy of Professional Coders, go to their meetings, okay? Their in-person meetings, and shake hands and introduce yourself, get to know people and say, hey, I'm a new medical coder. And if you're shy, that's okay. a lot of times, you'll have people come up to you who haven't seen you and say, "Oh, hi, I'm so and so. What do you do?" And then you can introduce yourself and say, "I'm a new medical coder, and I'm just looking to make some good connections and let people know who I am." And you never know, because sometimes people need people right away. And if you know somebody that is eager and willing to put themselves out there, those are the people that you are looking at to get hired. So just something to keep in mind. Okay. Number 8 is there are self-paced programs. So I will be leaving the link for the American Health Information Management Association's CCA, the Certified Coding Associate program that they have online. It's under, there's a link for it. I'll leave it in the description box. But that program can be taken over a year's time. And it is, it's everything that you need to know to take the CCA exam. And like I said, you have a year's time, 365 days to go over this material and finish it up before that time. So that way you can complete the program. It is all self-paced, but you have to have enough discipline to be able to make it through all the modules, okay? So that you can sit for the exam. And you'll be able to find out all the information you need from that website. I'll be leaving it down in the description box below. But if you are interested in going to an online school, that is the one that I recommend, because I am a member of the American Health Information Management Association and I have a CCA. If you are interested in the American Academy of Professional Coders, the CPC exam, you'll have to go to that website, because again, I don't know about that website, but I will leave it down in the description box below, okay? Because I am all about sharing the information, okay? Let's see. Number 9, where to find the list on AHIMA for the approved programs to take take programs that are certifications that are higher. Okay, so if you want to go and get an associate's degree, or if you want to get a bachelor's degree, you'll have to look on the AHIMA, or the American Health Information Management Association website, for approved programs for AHIMA credentials. So you'll have to see if the school that you want to is approved, if their program is approved, because otherwise you won't be able to sit for these higher credentials. Again, I will be leaving it down in the description box, so that way you guys can know where to go. Sometimes it's a little confusing at first when you're trying to navigate, if you don't quite know what you're looking for, but I'll just make it easy for you guys and just leave it down in the description box below. Okay. Let's see. I'm always looking at the time because I don't want the time to run out on me. Let's see here. Number 10, resume advice. Okay, here we go. Resume advice. 1 page. That is what I recommend always, is 1 page for your resume. If you are submitting a resume, 1 page. Maximum is 2 pages. But I really like to show only 1 page, okay? This is just my advice, okay? Spell check. With the advent of all of these software for spell check, there is no excuse for having misspelled words in your resume, okay? If I was a employer looking at a resume, that resume would get kicked to the bottom of the pile. Why? Because that tells me that this person is not detailed enough to spell check on their resume. If you are not detailed enough to spell check on your resume, this means that you're probably not going to be as detailed when you're looking at medical records. Okay? Now, 1 or 2 misspelled words is no big deal. But if it's a lot on there, because unfortunately, I've gotten a lot of resumes, and I told you guys, there's nothing I can do with these. But looking at them, I saw a lot of misspelled words. I'm like, did you look at this before you sent it to me? Because I can't do anything for you, but I'm looking at this like, wait a second, Is this what you're submitting? Because if this is what you're submitting, could be part of the problem. You never want to show less than your best, okay, when you are submitting anything to a potential employer, okay? I will say that, okay? So just make sure that you are making your resume look as best as you can. Show it to a friend, show it to your relatives, and see if they can see anything. If it looks good, then send it in, okay? But always make sure that you're spell checking those resumes, okay? No abbreviations, okay? I've seen abbreviations that people don't know what they are. No abbreviations. And anything related to your understanding of the position, like you can list anatomy, physiology under your skills, like your skill sets, medical terminology, any kind of software that you know, like Word or PowerPoint, Excel, solid communication skills is another thing you can list on your resume. Team player and a self-starter, okay? People are looking for those things because if you are a self-starter, this means that you don't need direction, okay? You can just be independent and do what you're supposed to do on your own, okay? And what better way to start than that, okay? If you speak multiple languages, make sure that you put that on there because you never know, okay? What would be a good language to know? Also, look at their job description. When you're applying for a job and you see their job description, if you possess any of the skills that are listed in that job description, add them to your resume if it's not already on your resume. Why? Because if they're looking for a particular thing and you have it in your resume, guess what resume is going to go to the top of the pile? Okay? So keep that in mind when you are doing your resume and you're submitting it to whatever agency or whatever facility. Look at that and make sure that you're adding and incorporating those things that they need. Because if you already possess those, it's best to tell them, right? So that's my advice on that one. I will go ahead and close this one up because I don't want this video to shut off on me. And I will continue with a part 2 of Q&A Tuesday in just a few minutes. All right, bye.